Hello and welcome back to How to Connect with Humans. This is episode 4 of series 5. And hello, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Oh, you look very handsome, Steph.
So do you.
Thank you. I look very handsome. That's good. Today we have somebody we really, really like and love, and we learn to love in a very short period of time. We met our speaker not long ago, but I think it was one of those love at first sight. We connected on such a deep level, and she's wonderful. And when we came to describe this episode, and I was doing like a little part of like story on Facebook, I thought, oh, Dell is like the sea. It's like this kind, gentle, sort of bringing you in, caressing and delicate, but yet so powerful. So we have Adey-Jones, and I hope I pronounced that properly. And she's a wonderful mentor, facilitator, coach, you name it. She does so many things. She's a YouTuber. She's gonna say this way better than I'm saying it. And she's gonna talk about living beyond self-limiting stories. And I know there's a particular thing you especially like, Del, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And yeah, we only just met, but I think we've been orbiting around each other for quite some time now. And I know I've seen you at the UK conferences, and so definitely familiar. Yet we just actually really sort of sat down and talked to each other a couple of weeks ago when you were guests on my show. And as you said, it was delightful. And yeah, your energy is beautiful, the two of you. The energy you have together, and then the energy you put out in the world is just gorgeous. Very, very excited to be here. Thank you.
So it's very early in the morning. You're in California.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we always think of California as sunny.
Not today. Oh, it is. It's called June gloom, and we have been socked in fog for about 10 days right now. And I know it's just my thinking, but I think I suffer from seasonal, SAD, that seasonal something disorder.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah. But
George Pransky said it was all made up, that I don't. So.
Well, you ask him to go there or come here and stay for like 2-3 months without much.
No, trust me, I grew up in it. I used to have a little cottage in Wales up until about 18 months ago, right before COVID. So yeah, I'm quite used to rainy, foggy weather. That's why I moved to California when I was 21. So.
And that was a promise of never again foggy weather, and then this happens to you. I can't believe it.
I moved to this beautiful place on the coast that just happens to, it's a little piece of land that juts out into the ocean. And so the fog just rolls in and covers this tiny piece of land. So it found me.
And I love that what you chose as a topic is like self-limiting beliefs, because this is a very little simple example of how we think life is, how we think it should be or we think it shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. And pretty much we, if there's something you can talk to a British person about the weather, like you.
It blows me away. When I used to go and visit my mum, it was like she'd go, "Can you believe the weather?" And I'd be like, "Mum, you've lived here for 90 years. It's always the same." It's like, why is it the topic of conversation every time we speak? It's so funny.
It is brilliant because it's not like really surprising weather. Like
Exactly.
And yeah, and like the sun comes out, and that is again surprising. People are like, oh, have you seen the day? It's like, you know, like people would not believe that you could be miserable on a sunny day. Like it's not.
Mm.
Yet I come from Argentina and we have tons of sunny days. And I came here, they were like, how are you gonna survive without the sunshine? I was like, well, I think I can manage better without the sunshine, but with more economical stability and less crisis. And, you know, but again, that was completely made up because when I lived there, that was the normality.
Yeah.
So that's what the world was like for me. I didn't know you could live in a different way, or with a different weather.
Yeah.
So you are really amazing, Del. And when I hear you share about um, what you have found, and when you talk to other guests, it's really beautiful the way you share. And so you have worked a lot with people on self-limiting beliefs and relationships. So would you like to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I, given my own life experience, I think often we, as facilitators, practitioners, coaches, we have a certain life experience that has us attract certain clients to us. So even though I have clients from all over the world in all different capacities, a lot of my clients are people that suffer from codependency. They may have grown up in narcissistic environments. And at the root of codependency is this sort of low self-esteem. And if you look under the low self-esteem, it's because there's a limiting story about yourself and you get stuck in that. So it's not that all stories are bad. I actually love stories. I'm a storyteller and I'm a story listener. I'm an avid reader and a writer. And I think that, our stories of our life experiences are fascinating. It's the way we connect. It's the way we go, oh my God, me too. I'm not so strange. I'm not so weird. I'm normal. I think we all crave to be normal, beneath everything. We want to know that we're not insane and we're not alone in the world. So, so having said that about all the wonderful parts of our stories, I think, we can innocently, have those stories running in our background and we just carry them through life and we sort of put them in this rucksack on our back and it's like, well, this is me and there's another story about me, and before we know it we are weighed down with this history of who we think we are, the stories we've told about ourselves, and then we don't question them, we just live from that place. So for me, very, very briefly, because my story is so out there already, I'm going to bore everybody to death. But I did have an unusual upbringing in the sense that it wasn't sort of traditional. And I made such a big story out of it. That defined me, I would say, for the first, certainly the first 50 years of my life. And my story was that I was basically I was the product of an affair my mother had with my father for 8 years. So it was a relationship in her mind, at least. And she had 3 children with him. I was the middle child, but I never met him. He lived a couple of miles down the road with his other family and never spoke to us children. So I internalized that as there was something wrong with me if I was pretty enough or good enough or skinny enough or clever enough or whatever enough, that he would want to acknowledge me as his child. And and that didn't happen. So that was my big story. That was the giant rock that sat in my rucksack. And then when I went to the local primary school, village school, I heard the word illegitimate. And I remember, that was the nice version. There was a B version as well. But I literally, I'm still very literal. It's so funny. But I was like, illegitimate? Like, I'm not legitimate. Everybody else is legitimate and I'm not. That means I shouldn't be here. You know, I really had this story that I should never have been born, that I somehow faked it. Plus, I knew that my existence hurt this other family. So that was another one, another proof why I shouldn't be here. So those were pretty much the big foundational stories that I carried through life with me and showed up in every way from that place. And then there's all those other little ones, like the innocent comments of like a school teacher, or an old boyfriend or something like that, that it's like another, you know, evidence of the story of who I am, or the, you know, the damaged person that I was. I remember even like when I went to art school at 16, I had always been told I was a brilliant artist. I could capture anything. I could sit here in front of you and draw you like that, and it'd be a mirror image of you. But I remember at 16, I went to art school, and I remember a teacher there saying to me, "Oh, you're not an artist. You're not creative. You're just really good at copying life." And it was probably an offhand comment for some, you know, teacher in the 70s to say to me, thinking that they were going to cultivate my creativity. But I just was like, oh, I'm not creative. That's another stone in my backpack. And it didn't matter how, I just latched onto that and made it part of who I was. So anyway, this continued, as I say, for the first 50 years of my life, never questioning my story, who I was. I felt that my personality was set in stone. I didn't realize that it's fluid and changeable and everything like that. So I first came across the principles in 2009, and probably one of the, you know, I'd studied spirituality for years before that. I mean, I came to California when I was 21, and up until that point, I was sort of almost suicidal. I was really contemplating not being on the planet anymore. It was just too difficult. And then when I got to California in 1981, it was that whole self-help movement. It was spirituality. It was amazing. So I really delved into that. But nothing could break through my story. It really couldn't. And it was only when I'd had 30 years of therapy, still couldn't break through my story. But when I came across the principles, and when I really saw that, you know, that our experience of life is created moment to moment by thought, I had this huge epiphany of like, this is where I swear, I did ask your permission, but it's like, oh God, I've been making up shit. And if I can make up bad shit, I can make up good shit. It's like, it was just really like, it's that simple. And it was, anyway, so I've got to share a story with you that my sister lives in Ibiza. So I just come across the principles, and we were lying on the beach, and it was, off season, and it was some remote little beach, little cove at the top of the island, nobody on the beach except my sister and I, and a couple of canoes. And she said to me, she goes, oh, you know, it's such a shame that you suffer from agoraphobia and you're scared of the water, because last week my friend Paula took me out on those canoes, and we paddled out. We went out of the cove, and then we got into the open water, and then we came around the corner, and there's a cave. And if you go through this cave and you come out into this, or rather tunnel, you come out into this giant cave with this shard of light that shines through like a laser, and it lights up all the fish inside this cave. And she's like, it's such a shame you'll never get to see that. And I was lying there, and I thought, oh God, if it really is all thought, am I really claustrophobic or not? Or am I just thinking I am? So I sort of was mulling this over a bit in my head for a bit. And then I said to her, let's go. And she was like, oh no way in hell am I going out in that water with you. You're going to panic. You're going to freak out, you know. And I said, well, just tell me again, what's this tunnel like? And she goes, oh, it's terrible. You can't sit upright in the canoe. You've got to either lay flat on your stomach or on your back and like make your way through the tunnel like this using your hands. And there could be bats there or slimy things. And so she told me like the worst case scenario of what it was going to be like. And I just kept thinking, you know, this is my test. Is it really just my thinking? So Anyway, so bottom line is we jumped on canoes after I swore that I wouldn't panic and freak out. And we did. And there were moments as we started getting out into deeper water and deeper water, that I was like, what have I done? But I kept thinking, that's just a thought. And I could follow that thought down that rabbit hole, or I could just let it move through me, just like any thoughts do, and just sort of stay focused on what this incredible scene I was going to get to see. And so I did it, and I went through the slimy tunnel, lying on my back, thinking that bats were just above my nose, pulling my way through. And when I got in there into this big cavernous opening with the shard of light, and I got to see the fish, and I just was like, oh my God, if I hadn't come across the principles, if I hadn't known that I could challenge this story about myself, that I am this label of, claustrophobic and, did I say agoraphobic before? I meant claustrophobic. I think I might have said that. So you can edit that bit out. But claustrophobic, I got to experience something I never, ever would have experienced unless I'd come across. I mean, I know it's tangible and it's just a small example. Clearly, I've experienced so much more since then. But just in that moment, the freedom that I had, to experience something new that was so magical that I would never have allowed myself prior to the principles to even contemplate doing. I would have just gone, no, this is who I am, set in stone. These are my labels and I'm hanging on to them for dear life. And so that was just one example of what challenging this story I had about myself. And since then, just to deal with that, feeling of claustrophobia, every time I get on a little seaplane and fly over to Salt Spring Island to see Elsie and Chip, and I'm like, I couldn't have done that. I would have let that little seaplane limit me from going to somewhere that's so magical. And there's so much evidence of that in my life where, I wouldn't get into lifts. And if there was this, a floor I needed to get to that was 30 feet high, I used to have to climb the stairs. I mean, my butt was grateful for it, but I'm just saying there's some things that I just didn't allow myself to experience because of this label I had. And that's just in that one area. I mean, clearly, my other labels were that I was broken and damaged and shy and an introvert. And because of those labels, I wasn't showing up in life fully. I wasn't playing. I wasn't engaging. I was so in my head. So that's just a little bit about me coming across the principles and how it impacted my life.
That's awesome, because that story that seems like just a simple example, which is not. Because in Spanish we say, I think there's something similar in English, but we say like, you only need a button as a sample. It may not make any sense in English. Like you don't bring the whole thing, you just bring one button. That's enough as a sample. So, so the fact that you gave yourself the possibility of having that experience, then it's incredibly freeing, because we know that once we see something like that, it's huge in our lives. Once you break the barriers of something that was so limiting, then you think, well, if I can do that one, what else can I do?
Yeah.
If that one is not who I am, then what else is there for me? The world is, as Sydney Banks put it, nothing has changed, but everything has changed.
Yeah.
And I guess you probably saw that for yourself, and then, I don't know, I'm just guessing here, but then you also see the possibility for other people.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that, again, going back to story, that's why I think it is important to share our stories, because I think that, my story was, as I said, it was so I had created such a limited life for myself based on my insecure thinking, you know, like even like the world is a dangerous place. Part of what my mother had to do to raise money for us was to convert our little house into a home for mentally disabled and mentally handicapped people. And as a 5-year-old, that was really scary for me. So having that thought as a child probably kept me safe. But to carry that thought through time into a world that of possibility with incredible people in it was just not giving myself the opportunity to live fully in life. So when you share your story and you say, yeah, this is what I used to be like, this is what I used to think, this is how I used to live. Yeah, it does inspire other people to go, oh my God, me too. I could do that. I mean, like, and one of the things that when I was younger, personality tests were a big thing, like the Myers-Briggs or Enneagram and things like that. And I was always an introvert and shy, and in the Enneagram, I was a sort of misunderstood artist. I was a number 4, and I was I was all these things that labels of who I was. And then when I came across the principles, I had to take a Myers-Briggs for something. And I went from because they say that's set in stone. That's another thing they say is this is your personality. It never changes. You're always going to be this no matter what's going on in your life. And I came out as an extrovert. And I thought, there's only one reason for that. And that is because of the understanding of the principles. I challenged that story about myself. And when you let that go, it is, I love it. Mavis Khan's, she says, we are made of infinite potential. And that is so true. Like I said, when I realized I'd been making all this up and I could make up anything I wanted, I just happened to have, created the story of Dell, the persona, based on some habitual, frightened thinking of a child, never questioned it, just carried that through time. And then when I realized that was just it, thoughts carried through time that I could let go of, and what's possible, fresh thought, new ways of showing up in the world. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
I love that, because what I'm hearing in what you're saying is the stories we make up is limiting at the time, but then when you drop them, the freedom in that.
Mm-hmm.
I love what you said about the labels, and what came to me was putting, and I think you kind of said it was kind of putting pebbles in a bag.
Mm-hmm.
And that bag getting so heavy with the amount of labels that we put on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Me included, I've done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when you kind of drop those labels and you kind of take that bag off your shoulders, the amount of freedom that you have
Mm-hmm.
to be able to show up as whoever you want to. And I think everybody knows here about my disability, but for me, that's a massive label that I had growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only since I came across this understanding that I've kind of dropped it. Not because I don't think I've got disability, I know I've got disability. But what that means doesn't have the same weight as it used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's beautiful. And it's so true. It's just and whether the disability is a physical or an emotional disability, when we view the world from that place, and we view ourselves as limited because of that, it's just not true. There's so much potential.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not dismissive of what you lived, as a child. Like, goodness me, what a difficult time. And also you take what people say as that's how it is, and that's how, and it's funny because you were talking about that, and I was thinking, yeah, and we start feeling inadequate and maybe not capable of thinking that we're not deserving of love, or we have to beg for love. We have to be attached at whoever is going to willing to love us. It doesn't matter how, because we are so undeserving that it's like one of these dogs, that is like starving, and you find in the street, and you just give them something and they follow you, and they will do whatever as far as you still love them. And I was thinking, well, yeah, I know Wayne had the story. Now, for example, I had a dad that wanted to be my dad. That was my, that wasn't an affair with my mom. They were married, and they divorced when I was 3. And then they both remarried when I was 5. So, and that was the beginning of the 70s. So I went to school, and there weren't other children from parents that were divorced. So I remember as you had a legitimate, I suddenly one day was the only one not invited to a birthday party because my parents were divorced. So you see, there's always some story that you start thinking, oh, so I'm not good enough. The other thing was, we were going on holidays, and suddenly my passport or my name was different to whatever my mom and her husband had, and they were like questioning, so who is she? And she had to produce a letter where she's actually my daughter. But again, we're out with my dad and wherever. It's like, oh, your mom. I was like, well, it's not. No, she's not my daughter. And I was never legitimate.
Yeah.
Right. So my story was, I don't belong. I don't belong. Like, oh, please let me belong. And there's some part of me that still operates from that place, unconsciously, innocently.
Yeah.
So I find myself, people are talking about something, and I think, oh, they're a group, they know each other. Oh, I don't belong, I don't belong, I don't belong. Not because, not because they're doing that brutally, it's because it's still sometimes a story. Now, it's interesting how this possibility of reassessing, checking with yourself again. I made a story that I will never be good enough to belong to the Through Principles community, for example. Now, so this is very recent. Now, probably a lot of people in the community will say, Darlene, are you mad? Like, but I made a lot of my way all these years, just on like, please love me, please accept me, please, I'll do hard work on understanding this so that I will be accepted. And during the quarantine last year, it was a huge breakthrough. Well, I suddenly could give myself the possibility of saying, you know what, you are enough to start a talk, I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to have validation. And it's interesting to see, because Del, is the first time I'm actually checking out on that. So what you said just completely opened my eyes to see that I am already a different person from who started this series a year ago. How, and that's the power of a beautiful person like you, Dale, that shares, when I was saying like you're like the sea with this caressing, soft, beautiful, inviting way. I'm here in absolute speechless now. Because you were talking and I was, no, yeah, I know. And then suddenly I thought, oh, I didn't know that. Right? Like, I thought I have seen it all in that area.
You know, it's so beautiful. You're touching me so much too. It's, you know, listening to you share there, it's so amazing to me. It doesn't really matter the content of our stories. It really is what we make about it. And whether we've had a, you know, dysfunctional childhood or a happy childhood, you know, we will make up stories. And sometimes it's the most innocent little one event that we made into this giant, great big thing. And then it has a life of its own, and it follows us through life, and we let it affect us. And just knowing that we are, like you said, I love what you said, you're not the same person you were when you started this series. We are changing every second of every day. And we're creating new stories every second of every day. And not all of them are good either. You know, I still bust myself on some of the ones that I have had. I realize that I've had a story that I am reliable and I show up and I give 150% and I this. And you know what? I just decided that it was so funny, because I think we have conscious thinking and unconscious thinking, but that was running the show to the point where my wisdom, my intuition, whatever you want to call it, was screaming, slow down, you're burning out. And I just was like, I had the story running. I got to keep doing, got to keep doing, got to. And it's like, and then when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's a sneaky story, because that's the story I like about myself. So I've let that one run. You know, the ones that were tripping me up were more obvious to let go of. But that one, I was like, I love what you said in the beginning of this. It's our preferences. Oh, I like that. I don't like this. I like a little more of that. But, you know, it was too much of a good thing. I burnt out. And I've been playing with, I'm going to swear again, not giving a shit, you know, or meaning, I mean, of course I will always give a shit, but just not being a perfectionist. That's the other one that I think we can have, that story that I need to be perfect, whatever that story is. And that's a story too that I have carried through time. And you know, my son was staying with me this weekend, and he's so lovely, and he said to me, Mum, he goes, you know that you always, you know, that you don't have to be a perfectionist. You can do less. And it was like, oh yeah, thank you for, you know, you're 24, but reminded me of that. That was another one that was just hidden under the surface. You know, like I have to give 150%. I have to be perfect to not even be liked by others, but liked by myself. I'm the only one that's making this story up. I'm the one that has created this list of what I have to achieve to feel good about myself. So I just love how playful it can be when you really bust yourself on your stories. So, is anybody, are we ready for opening up for comments or anything?
Yeah. So you can mute yourselves if you want to share, ask, or you can write it down. Um, so feel free.
So I'm going to push myself right out of my comfort zone. Sitting back, you know, with those stories that you make up. I hate speaking. I get hot. I get flustered. But I do some work with the iHeart, and you know, I think you all know what the iHeart curriculum is, and we have like supervisions, which are wonderful. And I remember we had this supervision, and it was a couple of months ago, and I had this huge insight from it. When we, and I hadn't seen. I know we keep talking about everybody's mentally well,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew it intellectually, but I obviously didn't know it on a deeper level. Well, I didn't know it for me, especially, and then whatever happened in that supervision just woke something up inside, and it was like I could see my own innocence of how I'd um, how I'd shown up in the world for years and years and years, how I needed people to like me, how I needed to fit in. I'm going to get emotional. How I needed to have male attention, how I needed to be, you know, accepted, and I could see, and you know what brought this up, Carolina, was when you were saying about, you know, the little dogs, and and they'll do anything to get this scrap of food. Well, that was me just reaching out to try and get some kind of validation of, you know, being a good person. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's what I was doing. That was survival mode for me. And it was the first time that I could honestly look back and forgive the stuff that I've, not even forgive is probably the wrong word, but look at how I've shown up in the world and have compassion for myself for all the things I've ever done. It was like, oh, I can see why I did that. Of course I'm going to do that. If I feel not good enough, of course I'm going to need to go and do X, Y, and Z to get that kind of, you know, reaction from a guy, or, you know, oh my God, it like completely woke me up to compassion for myself, and to see that, oh God, yeah, we are all really mentally well, because if I wasn't mentally well, I wouldn't know to do that. I wouldn't know that that was how I survived, but I did, and I'm thinking, wow. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. I thought that was just amazing.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. And this is the beauty again of us sharing our stories. Is it's like, yeah, me too, me too. I mean, I was incredibly promiscuous when I was younger, and I can say that with absolute love and no judgment, because again, just like you were sharing, Pauline, that was I was so empty on the inside. It was like I was just looking for to be filled up from the outside in, and it never realizing that I was made of love. It was like I felt like this bottomless pit of not being loved. So I was constantly looking for it. And if it came in the form of sex, then hey, that in that moment it felt like I was being, you know, acknowledged, loved, admired, whatever it was I was looking for. But I love what you said about that compassion, and you know, because we are all doing the best we can moment to moment. And when we're younger and we don't know this understanding, and we don't know how the system works, we're naturally just going to sort of operate from that place of innocently looking for the outside validation. But I love what you're saying, that you know, you just saw what it was. There was a story running that had you showing up a certain way, and how fabulous now we know that it doesn't have to, you know, dictate how we show up in the world.
I love that. I don't have to dress up and put makeup on and think that I have to be pretty for attention. I love that. I don't even care if I don't get attention after spending 50 years of needing it. It's just I've put the rucksack down, or I've took a couple of, I haven't put it down, I've took some stones out.
Oh, but you know what? That's the truth. We'd be deluding ourselves if we thought we're never, as I said, we're still collecting stories. I'll have a story from this morning. I'll have another one this afternoon. That's what we are. We're story makers. We do. And that's what's so beautiful in the lightness. And some of our stories will support us in a lovely way, and some might not. But to just be light with it, of like, oh, that one snuck in. That's not helping me right now. I can let that one go. But, you know, knowing that that just is what it is to be human. We are story making machines, and to have fun with it.
I do notice though, and it's great. And this is, again, I wouldn't have seen this before understanding that bit about myself, is that when I see like beautiful people, I'll be like, oh, it's crazy. I mean, I'm a straight person. When I say a straight person, you know, but I always look at beautiful women, and Carolina, even when I came on, I thought, oh, Carolina always looks stunning, and makeup is always beautiful. And then and now I go, oh, Pauline, why is that of interest to you? Why is that important? Why, you know? So I sort of wake up a little bit from the story myself, and I'm glad that I can do that, because I couldn't see through that before. I didn't know what it was, and now I can see it a little bit more.
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, Pauline, we love you so much, and have so much respect for you sharing today. And again, I go, me too. You know, you're like talking about me too. And before we came into the episode, I was telling Dale that I've been. It seems like I've been sort of passing kidney stones since Friday, or one, or do something there, and you know, so it's been really painful. It's been difficult to concentrate and do anything. And our stories. So I've been giving myself a really hard time on if I have kidney stones, what have I done that wasn't the right thing? And well, I'm 52. What do you expect? You know, now you're old, and that's it. What we thought we have conquered until now on looks, now it's all going downhill. And you know, so I put makeup and I try to look nice, because then people will like me and accept me. And then it's funny, because that's my story. It's like I'm here thinking, oh, I got a bit of a cold, and it's like, what next, you know? And you come in and you think, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful and was always looking so perfect. And you know, Pauline comes in and we're like, oh, it's Pauline that we love so much. I don't care if she's got makeup, she's in her pajamas or whatever, because the truth is that we have learned to see beyond the makeup, the hair, and luckily I have to do all that effort a lot less, and I do it because it's like I turn up to a party here, you know. And I like the look on Wayne's face when I come through the door, and he's like, oh, you know, It's like we're going out on a date or something. It's just so nice. But he has the same face when my hair is like a mess and I'm feeling awful, and and I came in with like clothes I've been wearing for 3 days, and so he's more accepting of me that I am accepting of me in terms of what I think I need to be loved and fit in the world. I still have so many other pebbles, you know. um, but I love that we can create a space like this and be so honest and
And I love what you said previously. It was with like relationships and things like that. It was before I was so I needed that love. I needed that connection. And like you were saying, Dal, it didn't matter who it came from or in what form, but it was just, as you said, to fill that gap. Because when I was younger, I was in care and things, and it was another kind of story or another pebble that I've kind of held on to for so long, that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't wanted. And so I needed those relationships to kind of give me that kind of, yeah, I am worth it. Yeah, somebody does want me.
Yeah.
And I remember when I came across this understanding, I kind of still had that kind of relationship with Carolina. And there was one point that she turned around to me and said, you know what? If this relationship keeps on going like it is in this current state, because I was as needy as anything. And I remember her saying, if as I say, if this carries on like it is, I can't continue with it. And something woke up inside of me and was like, hang on a minute, if I want to keep this woman, then I've got to change. And I remember I had a session with Janet Riney, and what I thought was the relationship wasn't. So that again was another story that I kind of put in the devil basket. And for me, looking at it now, looking at our relationship now, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, ask me in 2 or 3 years' time, it could be completely different. But
because I'm getting old.
I didn't say that.
No, that's my story.
But at this moment, I couldn't ask for anything better. I wouldn't want to. It doesn't matter if Carolina comes in and she's not looking how she wants to look. For me, if I'm not feeling myself or I'm not looking as good as I want to look for her, and again, I can get in my head about that. But she doesn't see that. It's like with her, with me, and me with her. We kind of look beyond that. And it is just that. It's looking beyond and knowing that it doesn't have to be that. And it's not that. The connection that we've got with everyone and the connection we've got together is just, and I think the connection we have with ourselves is enough.
That's so beautiful. You know, when you're sharing there, what's occurring to me is that our stories are coming from our personal mind. They're coming from mostly from insecurity and that sort of like, you know, the chatter, 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 chatter. And when we're listening to those, or we're involved in them, or believing them, or giving them value, we're not present. We're not in our essence, which doesn't have insecurity. It's just pure love, pure peace, pure joy. And it sounds to me, when you're describing that, all I'm hearing is that neither one of you are listening to this. You are both so present to each other and in that beautiful space of loving, and where there is no insecurity, there is no lack, there is no judgment. It's just purely connecting on that level. And that is just so beautiful. And it's amazing and innocent, again, innocent, that when we are up here listening to these stories, we can't be present to each other. And everybody's walking around like bumping into each other in their little thought created bubbles, you know. I have another, I just want to share this example because it was so shocking to me. It happened many years ago before I actually came across the principles, but it was a bit of a wake-up call for me because in my previous life, I used to own restaurants with my ex, and we were at one of our restaurants, and I'd walked in and I was, you know, riddled with my insecurity. And I was probably, you know, thinking, God, I look fat. I whatever story was going on in my head. I came into the restaurant and I sat down with my two little boys at the time, and this waiter came over to me, and at one point he said, can we have a chat? Is it okay? Can I talk to you for a minute? I was like, yeah, sure. Like, so he took me into this sort of hallway and he goes, have I ever done anything to you? And I was like, what? He goes, you come in and you never remember me. And I just thought maybe I've done something to offend you. And I just want to apologize. And oh my God, I can tear up even remembering it, because I just thought, oh my God, I was so involved in my insecure story of how do I look? People are going to judge me. You know, my ex is this person, and how do I measure? Oh, that story. And I wasn't even present to this beautiful man that obviously I had met a few times, enough for him to actually take my preoccupation personally, that he may have offended me. And it was just like, oh my God. He's in his thought created little bubble of he's offended me. I'm in my thought created little bubble of, oh my God, people are going to go, what's he doing with her? And here we are just not connecting. And I remember saying to him at the time, I was so grateful. I was like, thank you for waking me up. I am so sorry. You've just mirrored back to me how unavailable I am because of my insecure thoughts. And then we became great friends. But it was again one of those moments that just illustrated how hijacked we get into these stories. So
I love that, because it's like when you're in your head, you're missing so many opportunities with anyone and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just incredible.
And I should say, to demystify also that, you know, that so we're not like these all the time.
No.
You know, not all, you know, because as you say, like our how present we are fluctuates moment to moment. So depending on how I woke up, or if I'm tired, or if I'm in pain, or whatever, I could start making a story about, you know, how annoying today Wayne is.
Hang on a minute.
You know, how that t-shirt that today I love, tomorrow I think there's something about the t-shirt, right? So in the same way, I can start making some story of why he didn't pay attention to me, because maybe I've done something wrong, or because now something has become more important than me, or I can make it whichever way I want. I can start thinking, well, maybe the problem is that we're not a good match, right? There's somebody else somewhere there that has the whole combo. But so I think that's what we do a lot of the times. Like, well, but so as soon as I realized that I'm making it up, and not all the time, like a lot more time probably that I'm in some sort of thinking or other, making a story that we are fully connected. The thing is that more often we get nicely connected, and there's less expectation. Things start following. Like, instead of having to go into the rucksack and get in the pebble, suddenly you go, oh, this is lighter. Oh, for other people, I feel like I wouldn't dream of going without any makeup, or I wouldn't dream of turning up to the conference in London with no makeup, in whatever clothes I had found in the, because I need to make a good impression. So, but eventually what starts to happen is that my worry about how am I going to look or what am I going to put on, without me realizing, starts getting falling away. So that's is the beauty of getting more and more present. That doesn't mean that is not how we are all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a fluid state, doesn't it? It just, you kind of flow in and out. And I think for me, the more we kind of don't take it seriously, but we should be like this, the more it kind of is able to flow. And then the more we're in a better state more of the time, because we're not kind of so attached to it.
Yeah. So now this man that was so needy, probably we also started going out together because he was needy and I thought he's not gonna leave me. And then at some point I was kind enough to say, look, if you don't understand that you can be loved, this can go on, because there's no matter how much I do to try to love you, if you don't believe you can be loved, that's what it was. I said, this can't go on. It's exhausting. So now, so now what I get are things like, oh, it's actually good when we don't have days together. Like, it's nice because I quite enjoy that we miss each other. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm not that comfortable with that yet. Like, oh, he's growing feathers. Like, he's, I get insecure. Which is actually signs of a beautiful thing of, like, just, his neediness started sort of, I don't know how you feel that.
Well, for me, when you first said that, like all these years ago, I kind of took it as an insult. I was like, oh, there we go again. There's another pebble to put in the bag. Oh, yeah. That just kind of, enforces what I was thinking before. Here we go again. This relationship's over and all this. But it's, as soon as that kind of dropped away, and I had a few coaching sessions. As I said before, it was kind of what I thought was going to be, oh, you know, this relationship is okay. It could be doing with this, you know, this and this. You know, you need to do this in the relationship. You need to do that and all this. It wasn't to do with the relationship. It was to do with me.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing. For me, it's refreshing to kind of go, you know what? Now I'm comfortable in myself and in our relationship to be able to kind of go, okay, you go home, I'll stay here, and we can have that time apart. I've not got to kind of grab onto Carolina every single second, as much as I want to. But the difference in that is from where it's coming from. It's not coming from a place of neediness. It's coming from a place of I want to.
Yeah.
Not that I need to. And I think that was a massive thing for me to first see.
There's so much freedom in that. I'm exactly that want versus need, you know.
Claire's got patiently her hand up.
Yeah, and I think
Yael as well wanted. So
yeah,
if we have Claire, and then is that okay? And then Yael.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, you can unmute yourself if you want.
I always forget to do that. Wayne, you just made me think then when you said about, you know, it just made you realize, you know, how you were stuck in that sort of pattern. But it's like a new chance, isn't it? And who would have thought that there would be a new way of being? You know, when you can have years of thinking a certain way and be in a certain way and it being in that mindset, and then to suddenly think, bloody hell, I can actually live my life a different way. This is incredible.
It is.
Yeah, and I'm so great. I've loved what everyone's had to say. Del, your story is wonderful, and I love your podcast. I listen to it every week. And Wayne and Caroline are so grateful to you.
We
love this.
We love you. We love you. We're trying to convince Claire to come and be a guest. We'll see. No.
Oh, I think that's a great challenge. Break that, whatever that story is that says no.
Can I just say something else? Just about you know, we all get caught up in our stories, don't we? And they feel so real, and it can go on for years, like everyone said. But I made a massive mistake with somebody by actually saying that, oh, you know, do you really? And I meant it in a kind way, but they were so sort of ruminating in their thoughts and stuck in it. They were tortured, and I ended up saying the words, oh, you know, you're stuck in a story in your head, which didn't come across very well, but I meant well. And I just wondered how you broach that when you can so clearly see when someone is so caught up and suffering in their story. How do you broach that with people without saying, oh, it's your thinking or it's a story, you know?
Yeah. You know, I think it's, I mean, it was a question for me or for Carolina or Wayne. For me,
you, Del, please, and then anyone else.
You know, for me, and I just wrote about this week because Carolina and Wayne's show came out. So my blog this week is based on that. And I talked about that. It was a slow burn for me. You know, I was going through some really challenging life-changing events all at the same time when I first came across the principles. So I had a million yeah buts. And I do remember somebody saying to me that they will remain nameless, but I almost bolted. I almost got out of the community. I almost just felt like this is just, you know, if I hear it's just your thinking when I've just buried the third person out of my family in 8 months, you know, my sister, then my sister-in-law and my mother, going through a horrendous divorce and having a child that was suicidal. I mean, for somebody to just be like, it's just your thinking, it just felt so dismissive to me. So I'm actually grateful that I didn't have those big aha moments, because it has me sort of, you know, have a lot of patience with somebody to really meet somebody where they're at. I mean, we don't have to say it's just your thinking. We can feel that. We can think that, and we can see their health, and we can trust that they're going to find their own health, and they're going to get out of that story, and they're going to see something differently. So for me, but I also don't think there's ever a mistake, ever. I think
This one was.
Well, meaning
it was.
it might
I learned
appear,
from it.
and it might appear that way, but well, number one, you learned from it, so it can't be a mistake. And number two, you don't know what seed you planted. It might not have been the right time for it to germinate, but I just trust that everything that's happened for a reason. Everything we did, as you said. I love the way that you're not beating yourself up for it. You know, you did the best you could in that moment. And you never know, wisdom might have been saying to you, say this, you know, as crazy as it sometimes is, things come out of our mouth that we might go, where did that come from? I should have said that. But I would just trust that you know, it's so funny. I'm going to share this little story very quickly. When I first got into therapy, I don't know why I went into therapy. I thought I got life together. I mean, I was a crazy in my 20s. I was a lot of drugs and a lot of, you know, it was in the 80s in Hollywood. It was a crazy time. But I felt like I was winning at life, whatever you make of that. I was a game player. I was manipulative. I was determined not to get hurt. I was not a healthy 20-year-old, put it that way. At 29, for some reason, a friend of mine, I was a costume designer, she was a makeup artist, and she said, here's a card. I think you should go and see this therapist. I think you got some issues. And I was like, I don't think I have issues. I think I got it all down now. I've figured life out, you know. But anyway, I went and I shared a little bit about my story. And the therapist said to me, oh my God, your mum should have had her tubes tied and your dad should have been castrated. And it blew something open in me that I was so shocked and so wounded that I scuttled out of that room, like swearing I was never going to come back. And I didn't go back. You know, she followed up with a few phone calls saying, I'm so sorry, I was too abrupt. I shouldn't have said that. Please come back. I'd like to work on things. And I was like, get away from me. But a seed was planted that maybe the way I was living, that there was something more. Maybe there was, you know, those hidden stories or whatever it was, that belief about myself. So it wasn't the right time for me, but it blew me open. And so I don't look at that as, oh, this woman was terrible, because I think she was coming from a really good place. She was trying to sort of shock me into seeing something. Just wasn't the right time for me, but it certainly put me on that path of there has to be something better. There has to be a different way of living. And so, yeah, so that's my answer to that.
Yeah, that's really useful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that, Dale, and I like what you're saying, because to be honest, so many times I you know, then when I went and did the course with Jamie Smart, when I did Clarity, it was so useful, because one of the things he was talking about was calibrating yourself, like, you know, who is this going to be helpful for? And I still make those mistakes a lot. And the other thing I learned is that wisdom gives me that possibility of sometimes saying that I've gone too far, or I've said something that it was so obvious to me, but it was so outrageous for the other person that I actually hurt them. It wasn't the right time. I wasn't being kind. Nobody asked me to go say that. And So wisdom gives me this possibility of like a really good sat nav and going like, oh, you went a bit farther, you went the wrong way. So I can go back and apologize.
Yeah.
And get connected. I don't know if you've seen, there's a video called It's Not About the Nail. And if you haven't seen it, I will put it underneath this. And there's a couple and you can't see, have you seen it, Claire?
No, what's it called?
It's Not About the Nail.
Not About the Nail.
So I'm going to try to do something like it. So it's a couple talking and she's like, so let's say you can't see this. And so she said like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I have these terrible headaches and I don't know, there's something wrong with me. And he's like pointing and going like, yeah. And yeah, but sweetie, no, you don't understand. There's something really wrong with me. And then she turns around and in the middle of the head, she's got a nail. So she's got a nail like that. And she's like, you don't listen to me. You don't understand. Like the type of headaches I have are different to yours. And he's like, yeah, but you need to see. And it's like, no, but listen. And then he sort of gives up and starts listening.
Yeah.
And the video is called It's Not About the Nail. And to the other person is so obvious, you know, that all her headaches, all her problems, all the stuff she's describing comes from the nail.
Yeah.
That is for us to kindly point and until the other person is ready to see the nail for themselves and go, that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. It's a great illustration and it really is true. And as I say, knowing myself that there was a couple of encounters that could have had me not stay within the community and not have grown and see what I've seen has me very sensitive to other people that you know, take longer to see sometimes. So I love that. Yael, you've been so patient.
So patient. It's so late in Israel.
Oh yes, exactly. Sorry. Thank you, Claire. That was really lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I keep on trying to not be on these conversations after a certain time, but I'm here, and I'm happy I am, and I've been listening to what you're sharing about, especially about the, I guess we call it OCD. We're used to, and I grew up, I was used to yelling at all my, because if you don't, I didn't know that I was getting upset because I thought that if this would be clean the way it's supposed to be, I could relax after that. And if I cook the food and I cut it exactly in the squares that I want, and they're all I'll have peace. And I was a very, very mad, very upset child and grown up. And my life has changed in so many ways, but when Del, when you answered to Carolina in, you know, a little while ago, and you were talking about the love and we have in our head, something dropped for me in the way that all those can never fill that. They're not, they don't follow each other. They don't, it's like we're full from a certain thing. I know how to explain. And it's so strange because they're this idea that there's this we work in, our mind, our body, our brain. And it's like, that's connection between, like, thing that connects my fill that, I don't know, I'm just new and different in this conversation.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if it was my connection or
It's
yeah, but I was
and I think this is a good example where we're gonna have to go with a feeling of what we got, because Yael's connection is not very good at the moment. So what happened, Yael, is basically we got like and you're frozen, and then and you were frozen, and a little other word, and so I guess we can go with the feeling, your expression, and the words that we couldn't hear. You can put in the chat. Yes,
Yeah.
put in the chat if you.
I'm gonna try to move just for a minute closer to the modem, because
you know, the little bit I did hear and what I was feeling was when you were talking about things needing to be a certain way so that you could be at peace. And it just, you know, that is just such the universal truth of what we think when we don't look in this direction. We're so busy trying to manage everything on the outside so that we can feel okay on the inside, whether it's managing our circumstances, managing to the point of how things are cut and prepared, or managing people, or everything. It's all this big story of I'll be happy when, you know, I mean, that's a massive one. I'll be happy and content and at peace when everything falls into place. And it's exhausting. And how incredible this understanding is, that when it points to that, you know, it really isn't the outside in, it really is the inside out. And just, Yael, if you're typing, did you type yet?
no, can you hear me a little better now?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if I start typing, you may get it next month. Like, I'm not there yet. So this is, you know, the thing that when you answered something, you said something like the love that we are, right? When we fall out of all of that, what you just said, and we start, you know, getting to know who we are beyond that. It's like that whatever we call the story, the chopping, the size, the cleanliness, the tidiness, it can never fill that. It can't fill it. And I don't think that it was ever clear to me like that till, I guess, half an hour ago. Like, it was always like, you know, it's something, yeah, it gets quiet, but there's more stories in between. But the different of, like, when some people ask me, so what's in this understanding? Why, how does it help you in life? It brings me back to myself all the time. Wait, am I, and today I was at work and I was sitting outside and having lunch. And all these things that I would beat myself up about. Why is my mind commenting on people that are passing by? Why am I commenting? And I'm sitting and I'm having a bite of a pepper, and this guy passes by, and I'm like, and I'm sitting there and I'm chewing, and my mind is like, oh, that's a religious person. He probably has a lot of children. He doesn't know what he's doing in life, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, whoa. And then another lady passes by. I'm like, oh, people shouldn't be rushing. If they would just know about da 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 da, they would, maybe she wouldn't be running. She's an older woman. Maybe she'll fall. And then I'm like, whoa, I'm not doing it. It's not me. That's how it's helpful. That I can not take responsibility and be in the story of how I'm used to doing things and how clean my house is. I moved, so all the boxes should be unpacked, you know, it's time. No, I don't want to. I actually feel very comfortable. I love having one chair with all the clothes that I didn't put in the closet yet. But you open my closet, it looks like the books that show you how to fold with 16 folds. But I do it because it's fun for me. I put on music and I like it and I fold my underwear 12 times, but I don't do it anymore because I have to. And I don't think about it when I'm at the market. So I guess maybe this understanding makes life just a little more fun.
Yeah.
And maybe just a little more tolerable, or whatever the right word is, when crazy things that we don't understand happen around us or in our lives.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love what you're pointing to. And it really is, it's freedom. It's freedom to get on that roller coaster ride if we want, because that can be fun sometimes. I love being in a bad mood. Now I know I have a choice. You know, it's like, I'm just like, I'm going to sit in this for a while, you know. It's like, yeah, it's really lovely.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna remember that one. And I love what just happened. That what just happened. So, to put this in context for the YouTube video, for example, it's 2021. It's May, and so Yale is in Israel, in Jerusalem, and Palestine and Israel are in a misunderstanding. Let's put it that way. And this misunderstanding about missiles flying, you know, from one country to another, people dying. It's a very volatile moment. Nobody knows what's going on, what's going to happen. Exactly when Israel was, all people were pretty much everybody vaccinated, ready to go out, have hags, be free in the streets. And this just broke. So in my head, Yale's connection starts breaking up. And I'm going, oh, well, yeah, they're like missiles in the sky going, you know, that's why her connection is no good. Now, she walks 3 seconds from where she was sitting down, somehow gets closer to the router or connects it directly, and boom. It's all sorted, as clear as day. So, like, I can't think of a better analogy of, like, being in that and then connecting to the mains. Like, the connection was always available. The connection was always, it could always be good. It was just like, we say 1 foot away, was just like 1 step away from where Yale was. And then boom, she appears clear as day. So I made up a whole story. If I haven't read the news, I would just go like, oh, yeah, ours is good. It seems like the other connections are good. It's probably Yale's connection, that's it, on the internet.
But because you had that knowledge in the back of your mind.
I made a story. Right. 3 seconds.
Yeah. That's so great. It's and that's just it. We're just human. We're going to keep doing that, and that's part of the fun of being in this world of form. Is that the stories we come up with constantly. and then seeing through them, letting the next one arise and seeing through that.
This has been absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
Probably one of my favorites still.
Thank you. It's been lovely.
Been so intimate. It's a feeling of that we're all safe and connected. Even we can be so far away in the world, that we can be so open and so honest. I know that we are, we have each other, sort of like, yeah, we're we're supported. Like, just you can get rid of the makeup now and turn up in your pajamas, sort of thing. So thank you so much. I don't know if anybody else wants to say or share or ask, or Del, you've been incredibly generous with your time and your presence.
My pleasure. It's been beautiful. I love this. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you everybody that shared and contributed to the conversation. It's been wonderful. Thank you
so much, everybody.
Thank you. So we're really looking forward to what Del is going to be creating in the future.
Absolutely.
So as soon as she creates something new, we're gonna so thank you ever so much. Where can people find you, Del?
on my website is the easiest, Adey-Jones.com. Very easy, no hyphens, all one word. So yeah, it's been really, really beautiful, and so excited that we actually connected, and hopefully we will be traveling soon and I'll get to see you in person in the UK. So, but in the meantime, aren't we so incredibly lucky to have Zoom in these times when we can all just come together, and it's so, the feeling of love, it's incredible how it can come through the technology. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
Yeah. So we'll put all your links down here, so people can find them. And next week we are having a party because it's our birthday. So not our birthday, it's the serious birthday. It's a year since we started doing How to Connect with Humans. We're gonna have Dr. Mark Howard to come and celebrate, and he's one of the Claire's clapping, and he's one of the what we call the originals, sort of thing. Yeah. He was one of the ones that actually met Sydney Banks, learned it from him, and then he's an amazing teacher. We all love him so much, and so generous. So please come and celebrate with us, please. Because to be honest, like every single person pretty much here, we couldn't have done it without you. There's been so much love. We met so many people from, as you say, Del, from around the world, that if we have stayed in our idea of like, oh, we need to make little groups here, and we wouldn't have met them. So it's amazing. So he's going to talk about the profound simplicity of mental health. And so that's next week, next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. UK time. So we'll put all the information. And if you have any questions or anything that you want to ask us or share or connect with Del or connect with anybody else, please do. So thank you, and until our celebration says whatever, says something. So I'm not gonna make a story. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
You.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.